First Lady Michelle Obama appeared on Today this morning. It was an exclusive morning show interview. Let's watch.
I have seen that positive momentum, that people are ready to make some hard changes in their lives and the way we live. We fundamentally started shifting the conversation in this country.
The First Lady's conversation with Matt Lauer is celebrating the one-year anniversary of her Let's Move Healthy Living campaign to fight childhood obesity, and Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack is a key part of that. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Secretary. Let's talk about school lunches and what progress has been made in the first year of Let's Move, and what you really want to see as the First Lady and you and the Cabinet accelerate this program.
Andrea, the historic passage of legislation signed by President Obama in December, the first time in 30 years we're going to have significant improvements to school lunch, expanding the school lunch opportunities and school breakfast opportunities for children, and as importantly, improving the nutritional quality of those meals, more fruits, vegetables, whole grains and low fat, less sodium, sugar and fat content.
There are a number of manufacturers who have contributed and have agreed now to cut sodium. Have you reached the major manufacturers who are providing food for kids in school lunches, or do you still have further way to go?
Well, consistent with the dietary guidelines we just announced, we're going to see a significant reduction in sodium. Right now, the average American consumes about 3,400 milligrams of sodium a day. That's substantially higher than it needs to be. We're suggesting going down to 2,300, and for certain populations as little as 1,500 milligrams, and we're going to work with the food industry to make sure that happens. We're also seeing aggressive efforts on their part in terms of labeling, giving people very basic information on the front of packages so they can make more informed decisions. So when you combine that with what we're doing in schools, combine that with what the First Lady is doing in terms of getting people physically active and encouraging that to happen in schools as well, it's a good opportunity for us to really get our arms around this obesity epidemic, which is really at the heart of concern for America's children.
The First Lady was asked by Matt Lauer on the Today Show about her own Super Bowl menu. I wanted to play a little bit of that for you.
Okay.
I've always talked about balance in this campaign. I do talk openly about my obsession with French fries because I want people to understand the changes that we have to make in our lives are not whole-scale changes. That's what I tell my kids. You can have birthday cake and do whatever you want as long as you're eating your vegetables every day and you're getting some exercise.
There were chips and wings and a couple of other things on that Super Bowl menu. But the First Lady's point is you don't have to be absolutely rigid about this, but we do have to make sure that the right foods are available to kids in schools.
No question about it. Moderation in all things and an occasional treat is great. The reality, though, is a third of our kids are obese or at risk of being obese. That raises serious health care cost issues in terms of chronic diseases that these youngsters will take into adult life. It raises national security issues and whether or not we'll have sufficient numbers of young people to be able to draw from for an all-volunteer Army. And it certainly is a concern in terms of educational achievement. There are many studies that show that kids who are concerned about weight, kids who are hungry, are not going to be the learners that God intended them to be. So there are multiple reasons why the First Lady's leadership is so important to the future of this country.
Mr. Secretary, what about the fact that a lot of families just can't afford healthy food, fresh food, that the fast food sometimes is a lot cheaper and more accessible, especially for single parents or, families with both parents working who don't have time to prepare healthy food?
Well, the Let's Move initiative is focusing on this issue of food deserts and the availability of fresh fruits and vegetables. It doesn't always have to necessarily be more expensive. We just did a study recently that shows that perhaps fruits and vegetables can cost as little as 20 cents a cup. So it doesn't necessarily have to break the bank. But we do have to address this issue of food deserts where there are not full-scale grocery stores. The First Lady has set a goal to eliminate food deserts in this country in 7 years. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Treasury Department, and the Health and Human Services Department are joining together in helping to finance grocery stores across the country in those food desert areas.
As long as you don't outlaw chocolate. Just promise me that chocolate's healthy. It's one of the 5 major.
Again,
right?
Well, it's certainly a good treat, and I think again we all have to be careful about how frequently we have those treats.
Good advice. Thank you very much, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack on the Let's Move campaign from the First Lady.